Okay. All righty. Do we take roll now, or do we? No, all right. Attendees are myself, Ms. Perry, Mr. Green, Ms. Felter, Mr. Villard, Mr. Fowler, and Mr. Gary Johnson. First item is to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to promote the city of Alexandria by entering into all contracts with bands and vendors for 2025 events and other matters with respect thereto.
That item is a yearly item that we bring before the council. Maybe a couple of years ago, if not last year, we did a full report for Ms. Perry at her request that explains all of it. We can send that back down, but it's a yearly item that allows us to contract for only those items you've already budgeted for. So it's not, nothing that this allows us to add new money. It's budget neutral. This is all for your major events, the FETs, anything we do at the parks. There are now literally tens upon tens of small contracts we have to sign. If it's a jumpy, we have to sign contracts now. It's all sort of changed in that way. It used to be vended services. So big events, bands, all the bands have a contract and a rider. Daniel Smith, who's back here, has standardized all that over the last couple of years. We have things to, because some bands, you'd be surprised at all the wild stuff they'll put in a rider, but we have to have the ability to do that. If we were to bring that for each event or try to deal with it on a weekend, if something is going on, you'd literally have tons of small, tiny little vendor agreements. So this allows us to do that. It is within the budgeted line items within community service, so it's budget neutral, does not allow new money, and it does not in any way allow professional service agreements with lawyers or accountants or anything like that. It is limited to only those vended events that you know of and budget for each year in our recreation and community services.
Okay. Now, how many events are we talking about, Mayor?
One, I don't have any way to know each year, but every one we have.
Okay, I understand.
You're talking about 10, many. So you're talking about the two big fets. We can, well, I think we've sent a report, but we have tons of small events all year long, runs, all kind of different things that occur.
Okay.
And have partnerships. Some are things we just sponsor, so others pay for it and we sponsor it and maybe provide the venue, et cetera. But in any event, we have all kinds of different contracts that we have to sign to purchase things, whether it be food or other vended items. We have to be able to do that.
Okay. Now, who selects all the bands in the entertainment?
So it depends on the event. If it's for the fest, there's a committee or a group of people that work on that and call, and make sure. And they're, again, it's in the report that we'll send back down. We did. We have some commitments about you want to make sure that you're creating a balance of different types of music, different types of events and things on the FETs. And the bigger music FET would be the River FET. The Winter FET is more other activities. It's less about the music. The bands aren't selected by me, but they're selected by a group of citizens and different people a committee who works on.
You referenced a report. I didn't see it in the book.
It went down before. This is a yearly, when you serve before, this is the same each year. We have to ask the council because the charter requires that any contract that I sign be by ordinance, but it's a yearly item that we do each year.
And who decides who we do business with?
I'm not sure if I follow.
Well, I mean,
You do, or you can't.
I guess from my appreciation, if this ordinance is passed, it seems like you have all the authority to decide the who, the what, the why, the when, and whatnot. Is that
No, you can tell us, as council persons have in the past, I'd like to see this, or you can tell us anybody you'd like to see on it. You can participate in it as much or as little as you want. These are, again, small items, someone who has a jumpy or whatever, but typically, music is a little different. There's going to be a committee that does that has to be carefully balanced. Music also has to reflect the type of event, so for the FET, which is family-friendly, music has to be done very carefully because of crowd control and issues we can have at the FET if it's not done. All the other items. What's that? Yeah. All of our, and we'll show you in the report, all of our requirements to make selections follow AFEET, a plan that we wrote years ago, and all of those items have to go through that. In that report that we gave a year or so ago, I know you weren't on at the time, we go through how those selections are made, how you can weigh in on that if you need to. The alternative is we can bring each of those items to you, but if you have a weekend event or something that's small like that, the council will have to meet. I literally can't sign any contract. I can't sign to rent a jumpy or rent or whatever without council approval. So that's why this is set up that way. It's real standard fare in cities. There's nothing abnormal or unique about it because it would take a drastic amount of time of the council to meet for each event. The other part is we have events that just get popped on us. Someone wants to have an event, we have to scramble to see if we can meet it, and sometimes you have to engage some service to do that. But we're happy to do it a different way if the council so pleases, but the other way to do it, as far as I can tell, would be, if the council doesn't want to weigh in as we do them, would be to have each of these things come in front of you.
Mayor, a lot of these things too, these vendors, we have to make sure they have insurance and
Sure.
proper accreditation, all that kind of stuff.
So some things are a little more difficult. You can't RFP necessarily the ice rink for Winterfest. There's only certain people out there who can provide setting up an ice rink. And I don't know if everyone notes this, but we build that. Our workers go out and build the entire framing for that, which saves a lot of money. The ice rink, for example, has gone up some order of magnitude, probably, it's gone up a whole lot in terms of price. And we actually, like most things, I believe you go out and RFP it. You go out and look and see, and we're going to do that again. But the responses we had, other than the one we've been using, were more. We'll continue to do it, but I think if the decision there is either don't have it or you stick with the one you have that was cheaper than any of the ones that we saw. But not every business or strange thing you might have at a festival is going to be a lot of local businesses that do it. Some are, obviously. Food is subject to our AFEET plan, so we have a lot of vendors in food. And we would be happy to show you the data on who we use in terms of food vending, and there'd be no question about its compliance with our AFEET goals.
So who decides who does business with the city?
I think I've answered that as over and over.
You do.
No, the council does.
Well, I guess, but no, if this ordinance is passed, there's a phrase, "and other matters with respect thereto."
Correct?
So that pretty much gives you a lot of latitude.
It's in every ordinance, that phrase is in there, and in every ordinance in every city, that phrase is in there, because any ancillary matter that's tied to it, if you don't have that phraseology, and I'd be happy to let Mr. Gist talk about why cities use it, you could run into a problem that if it's not precisely exactly as those words, you can't do it.
So it gives you a lot of latitude to do whatever needs to be done.
It gives any mayor the latitude to do what's in the ordinance. The ordinance says to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to promote the city of Alexandria by entering into all contracts with bands and vendors. So the subject and object of the ordinance, bands and vendors, is limited. So I don't agree with you. It's the opposite of what you're saying. And other matters with respect thereto, or there can be things that aren't specifically the band or the vendor, but the sound or something that goes with it that is related thereto. You still have to provide for that. But this is not an open invitation. It's very limited to festivals for bands and vendors. And again, not having had the benefit of knowing that there was a question for something that's pro forma that happens every year, we can change it or do it any way the council wants. But I just want to push back, guys. I don't make the decisions. I don't sit in and go, I want that band, this band, whatever. So I don't do that. I rely on the community and people to give me advice. I don't make those decisions. They're made in community services by a group of people. It's not something I would weigh in on because I don't think that's my place to do that.
So like I guess our Christmas banquet we had this year for all the employees that have the meal and give out the awards. we're gonna have a contract, you have to sign a contract with them,
That's at a festival.
even to cook that,
That would be a little bit different.
whatever.
That would just come out of the HR budget, and again, all of those, I mean, Mr. Gold, we'll put up our food vending on a diversity matter, if that's the question, or on,
Yeah, I do have a question on that.
we'll put that up and be happy to show it. It's a major focus of what we do on food is that.
Mr. Lerman.
Yes, Mr. Green.
All right. Mayor, you made a statement saying that the community services have to be contacted. We can't just sign contracts. And from my understanding, anything, any kind of festival run, anything has to be presented to community services and not in a weekly manner. It has to be done prior to. So following through with this, you said that there are community input. That community input comes from who? Who selects that group of people to participate and help the citizens with the entertainment that is needed for the diversity in the city itself?
I mean, there are multiple partners that Mr. Caffrey tells me do it. I don't do it, so there's a group of people every year that it would include Lisa Harris for sure because of her past background with Kewen, obviously Ms. Corley, Angie in her office, and then other community partners. It could be people from Kinetics. It could be people who help us put on events, some for money, some not. There's a lot of volunteers that do it. It's just easier if you just get to the chase. If it's about picking the bands, then we can just deal with that with how would we need to pick the bands. I mean, we're open if the council wants to weigh into picking bands, okay. If the council wants to weigh in on food vending, that's okay too. The council can weigh in as much as it wants, but I'm not sure all the things you just said. I agree with Mr. Green about what I said earlier. I would just say that you talked about a weekly thing, and I'm not sure I understood. There's a community partnership request form called a CPR, where if you click on our website, you can click on it and get it, and it outlines exactly how to request a partnership with the community. It goes through what's called Article 7 compliance, which is the prohibition we have to donate things to the public for free. For example, we can't generally allow someone to use city facilities for a private fundraiser. That is generally, almost universally, but generally prohibited by law. There are exceptions to all of these things, and we have a very well-written, followed by other city policies that we've developed over the years of how you go through it. If you go through the community partnership request form, it's all laid out. Who are your other partners? What other money have you requested? How are you bringing diverse partners to your event? How are you? So all of that is in there. On any RFPs and things we do, there's a legend that we require. A legend meaning a block of language about AFEET compliance that goes on all of our material for RFPs, et cetera. There's state law that governs parts of these. Again, these are for the small vending services and bands. Bands can be bigger than small, but these are not professional service agreements with engineers, lawyers, anything like that.
Okay, the reason I was asking, because when you did, if I misunderstood you, I do apologize. I've noticed that when we do events, I think we got a run coming up in a couple of weeks, no bands included, but they were submitted in a timely manner that we'll get the approval from the council for in-kind service. My question was, on the community service side of the events, you said we could not, the council couldn't meet weekly to approve for a band, but to my understanding, when we put on events, they are put out in a timely manner that they have to be approved. So that's what I was asking about.
So we don't approve bands for community events. You'd have to be very specific. You're trying to globalize all kinds of different events and community services. This is mainly to deal with the two major FETs. If there's a run, for example, the city, I don't know what runs we're doing, but runs are usually put on by a third party.
Correct.
They select everything they want to do. What we provide If they're doing things that are beneficial to the community, would be things like barricades, and we require security. They have to pay. If they're doing a run for a fundraiser, no matter how beautiful the thing they do it for is, Manor House, anybody, and they're asking for assistance with regard to certain items. There was a run, I think, this weekend, last weekend at Spears.
$1,400.
$1,400. Nobody was very happy about it, but they have to provide more security now. And the reason we have to provide more security, and they have to carry that burden, which I'm sure the folks over there didn't like, is something you can easily discern by looking at what happened in New Orleans and elsewhere. I have an absolute duty to change how we provide these services, and that cost is going to be pushed on to the people doing it, not the taxpayer. How can we help? Barricades. We've got people that are very good at putting these on, but we can't, for example, go to a church and build a stage or give tables and things like that, because that would be part of this prohibited donation problem we have. But we can partner with people and do routinely partner with people, especially if it's at one of our assets. So if you had an event at the Links Golf Course, we're going to have more freedom to partner if it's in a city-owned asset than if you try to put us on private property, which again is almost a universal, can't do it under law. Any more than you could mow someone's grass or fix their driveway.
Mayor, for a moment, Madam Perry.
Can I speak? I don't know.
Yes.
My question would be for Mr. Lawberdane and Mr. Green. Would you all like to meet before an event takes place with community service? And
I would. I'm open for that, yeah, sure.
That would be appropriate, but, Madam President, what I was asking was, because I put this on the agenda, and I know Mayor Roy said that the feds were River Fed, Winter Fed, Downtown Rock, he didn't say really say downtown, but Dinner on the Bricks.
That would be one we'd include at that level. Dinner on the Bricks is part of one of the FETs. It's not a standalone.
Okay, so those bands would be selected by this committee that Community Service has selected, as including Ms. Lisa Harris and other people, some voluntary and some paid. Am I correct in misunderstanding where we're going with this?
Downtown Rocks, each of those are different. So Downtown Rocks is a series where bands are selected. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what happens, but
There are
you've
four
got to
bands.
find bands that first have to be available for that weekend. You have to cast a net to see. We tend to focus a lot on Zydeco and other music. What you try to do is figure out genres of music and fun and culture that grab the most people, that unite and bring the most people together. And Zydeco is one. So you gather a lot of different people in that, as opposed to picking one type of band that only appeals to one group of people. It's difficult. That's why I let people who are good at blended music take care of that for us, because I think you need to do that. I think that's an obligation for us to get that right culturally for our city. And again, we'll put up that. The festival, since we started the FETs, are the most diverse vended festivals in the city's history. That's a fact. So we're happy to show that data and how we do things. That doesn't mean we can't do better or take more input, but I don't think that the council is going to be able to meet to decide the band selection, et cetera. I think that would be impossible and silly, because it doesn't work that way. You have to find bands, find when they're available, match what you can pay. You've got to negotiate. You may be negotiating up to a month before. You might have a band that says, we'll be there for $75,000, and until you sign the contract, they could move. You might have a band that would be there for $5,000 and want to try to make it 10 as it gets closer. There's weather challenges. All of those things require us to have some degree of being nimble to make them happen.
so before a band is selected, or say that this committee has already selected a band, I have not even select a band, or actually talking to this band to see if they would participate. So would it be feasible for, let's say, the community service to come before the council and say, we looked at 5 bands, we like to tell you what bands they are. What are they? Zydeco? Are they R&B? Are they country? I'm just trying to find a place in the middle.
So it would be more advantageous to have members who want to participate in the selection than to come and try to negotiate with bands on the public record in a meeting.
Okay,
That would
so,
not make sense for us at all.
okay, so that goes back to what I just said. Mr. Laverdane and Mr. Green, would they have the option to meet with community service? And,
Yes.
okay.
And the report that you said would be forthcoming, correct?
I'm going to reissue, the one we wrote applies 100%, so I'm sure it is in the record of the council because we provided it, but I know exactly where it is, and I'll send it back down.
It is, and I think that it'll be helpful
Yeah.
to see that and understand the purpose behind it.
I think I've roughly said what's in it, but it has different sections, and it talks about AFED and the diversity part and how we achieve that and what we do, but it's not, I mean, it's a gumbo of things, Mr. Green. You've got to figure out what happens there, and it depends on the event. The FETs we're very careful that the FET has to appeal universal, broad, wide. And so while we're on that, I will tell y'all, there will be additional. We know, not just because of New Orleans, but our own data, that the FETs, we will probably for the first time have to talk about securitizing the footprint. We're going to probably have to talk about shrinking the footprint, and this ain't going to make anybody happy to have more controls about how it works. And someone could, we'll just do temporary fencing. Well, that doesn't work. You can push that down, it doesn't work. But I now have a duty.
And I'm glad that we're addressing this.
We are, Mr. Lauer. We had that anyway from our own internal view of watching things. I won't give all up our security measures, but they've been great. We have had great family festivals the whole time, not had, I think for most years, no violence at all. Every once in a while, one little fight, usually off the footprint, not even. But this year, without going into it, we've learned some things that are going to require us to up it. And then when New Orleans happened, it set a new standard of care. Mr. Laverdane, to use a legal term we both know, the new standard of care is unquestionably bollard control and even other things in thinking about that footprint. I know that sounds crazy. We don't like to think of the city that way, but if someone wanted to drive down the street in front of the coffee shop right there, and you think about how our festivals are so family-oriented and set up with tents, et cetera, it would be nothing. You can't ever stop everything.
No.
I think New Orleans took a lot of unfair criticism. I'll be happy to discuss on another day about why. It's always easy that guy could have taken off down Canal. He could have, if he really knew what he was doing, he could have done it a different way. But my point is, we're now under this new and higher standard, and to ask y'all to participate more, I actually welcome it, and here's why. We're going to have to really think about how we spend dollars, because I'm going to suggest to you that the dollars we spend on bands and other stuff is going to shrink compared to the dollars we spend on security, and we're going to have to think about how to put those on in an entirely unique way, and so we would welcome your input, because I think we got to rethink some of what we do, and we'll unpack that more as we get closer with some of those thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Any other comments?
I move to recommend.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, matter passes. All right, number 2, to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the 2024-2025 major budget amendment.
All right, we'll go through some salient big points, and then I'll turn it over to David and Paul, who are sitting up front, and we can go into any line items you want. I'll try to go by page number. You guys help me make sure. Everybody should, do y'all have it on back fronts or front page only?
Front page only.
Front page only, okay. So I don't normally single out an article, but when you have one written this way, I think it's probably noteworthy. I see Mr. Hint here, who's done some, I think, very good work on some recent reporting, and we appreciate that about goings on. I would direct people's attention to Jim Butler has an article out in, I'm assuming this is the Rapides Parish Journal.
Yes.
And the Rapides Parish Journal article I just saw it today and I read it. It's titled, it's today's date, titled Crunching the Numbers, Alexandria City Council Revised Budget tonight. So that brings us to the first point. This is major budget amendment. This is not the budget for the year. Each year, the council is required at some point after the midpoint of the year, it can be right before the big budget or right at midpoint, to true up under state law and probably under our charter, but for sure under a state law, they have to true up the budget against what happened. So you make a prediction at one point in the year, you adopt a budget, at major budget amendment, they have to amend it and true up what happened. This article could not be written better than it is. It is not only accurate on every number, it actually picks out the parts that are the most important parts of the budget, which is saying something because not everybody can read a public budget and get what parts matter. I thought I had Jim on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 graphs down on the transfers from the utility fund, but the more I read how he said it, it's still accurate. So if anyone is interested, if you read this article today, I could give that as the report. What I did, ladies and gentlemen, a little different. We usually do this at big budget, but I wanted you to see this because it can be so controversial, but it's good news, is if you would go to Utility Fund 401, so you're going to go in the document to page, Paul, help me, because you're pulling some of these out for me. And I have it as 9 on revenues, and I would ask you guys to go down page 9. Under Utility Fund 401 revenues and go to line 345,300. 345,300, a little lower than dead center of the page.
Fuel cost.
And you'll see fuel cost there. And that is your gas fuel cost. You'll see that difference of $4 million. So in the fuel cost purchased by us through changes in how we do it, leverage and hedging and all the different things we've done, we have a 60% difference there.
14 million?
No, look at 8 and 4.
One's gas, one's electric.
I'm going to show you the electric, but that one is 60. And then go up to electric, which is, go up to electric revenues, and now I'm at line 345,300. Oh, that was 800. No wonder I had y'all messed up.
Yeah.
I can't see. So,
What page you on again, man?
hold on. I'm kind of under the weather, so give me a second. My eyes are clouded.
Page
So-
9.
So go to electric revenue 345,300 and go your fuel costs across.
300, okay.
All right, 46,297
Right.
to 32,297. That represents a 34% decrease in the passed on fuel to your customers. From that is 34%, and that is 345,300. I see what happened to me. I saw 345,800. I didn't catch the.
Approximately 14 million.
And so, well, I'm doing the percentage, so 32.297 over the larger number, and then minus it from 100, and you're going to get the 30, it's 66%. So from 100, that's 34% in decrease. That's a huge savings to the people at home. Remember, you haven't changed rate, or you haven't increased rate since 1986 in electric, so your fuel cost is what fluctuates, and that's a down. And we're going to show you a few other things that make this even stronger. Now go to 345,800, right down the page, which I said earlier, 300.
Tap
I wondered.
fees.
I'm sorry. You're going to,
3, 4, 5, 800?
it's still 300. I was right.
Same count.
Same count. So there's your 844. That's a 60% net change to the good of your ratepayer. So this is a huge savings that happened, and I just think it's, not only is it worth pointing out, but when you look at each year since we've come in and made these modifications, this is the result of it. And it's a positive result. If we now go to page 1 of your major budget amendment, and again, I'm going to hit the big sort of budget philosophy points, and then we can dig in as much as you want. You'll go to 3 all 9s, a little lower than mid-page, where you have use of prior year funds. And then under that, transfer from utilities is 388,401. You see that under your interfund transfer? So, I need everybody to catch this, because it's good.
I did.
It's good. You've now done a 60% on gas, a 34% on your electric pass-through that you've lowered for your ratepayer. And, Chuck, you're the only person other than me that may remember this, because you've been on long enough to, sorry. I don't think, as much as every year I've tried to predict a day when we would not use the interfund transfer from utilities back to operations. We've talked about it, we've built budgets around it and done it, we've done a bunch of things. But there's your transfer that was 5.233 with a true 4,355 million reduction to 878,000, which in those terms is nothing. It's a plus or minus. It may even change and go lower at the end of the year. But we ended your interfund transfer this year. So please catch that.
I have a question.
We did percentage decreases, and we didn't have the transfer, and all the money that the prior administration had moved into utilities for ARPA and everything else, we, as promised, moved all of that to public safety into the police.
All right, now,
And
Mayor, I
so
have a
that's what we did with the money.
At item 399000, says miscellaneous revenue, I guess adopted was 45,000, and then according to the December, it was 250,000, and adjusted is 295,000. Explain it to me, please.
Miscellaneous revenue, 45,250 to be 295?
Yes.
We set it extremely low, Mr. Lawberdane, because that one, the nature of it, is a hodgepodge.
Now, what is that? What is that? You know,
It's
that was-
it's everything that don't belong somewhere else, basically. As its name implies, it's miscellaneous.
So just, we can get a
make
list of
money.
other revenues.
I mean, we made money on that, looks like.
So remember in utilities,
Incidental.
so there's usually a balance on the others. In utilities, because of the nature of the pass-through parts, there's going to be a counterpart in the accounting that trues it up. We don't make money off of the fuel cost side. That's a pass-through.
Okay,
So
I'm
where you,
just looking at total investment income. That's,
Oh,
Investment.
You looking at miscellaneous or investment income?
well.
he's under investment income, but
Under-
now he's under other. That's
Yeah.
not CD, that's not a,
Yeah, 39900.
399,000.
oh.
Miscellaneous revenue.
Miscellaneous revenue.
So he says part of that could be checking account interest. I think I don't know if we have a CD in there, it might be. I think that's going to be provided somewhere else, but,
So we made way more than.
Could that be the check off on the utility bill?
no.
That wouldn't be in this.
No, that wouldn't be in here.
That basically, I can get you some detail, Mr. Lawberdane.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to unpack each dollar that went in it.
Yeah,
We
that's
never,
all kind of
that's a
stuff in this.
very small number in the
I mean, it
utility.
seems a lot of money was made, $250,000.
No, he explained, you budget the 45 knowing it's going to be more because of this it's a miscellaneous, and then you true it up and you have to provide that it was more, but just like we do on the other side of overtime and things to use the controls, we'll budget overtime less than we think it is, and then you see overtime in here has gone up in areas, and you go, oh, what, because it's a control. You want to make sure you're conservative, so you budget revenue conservatively and let it be up, that's a plus.
That is.
And you budget expenses higher than they're going to be, generally speaking. Where we don't do that, the exception is in some of overtime, because that would set a new bar each year, and what you want to do is keep people not, you want to control overtime as much as you can.
Sometimes it goes up a little, Mr. Lawberdane, sometimes a lot, but like the mayor said, we set it low. So we hit that easily.
So it looks like we generated $8 million than was projected.
Right, but remember that these what we do in utilities on, not the whole, but anything to do with fuel cost is then accounted for on the other side, so that all we're doing is truing up what it costs us to provide that. It's not about making an income.
I guess that was a poor choice of words. It just seems like there's more revenue than what was projected.
There was.
Okay.
There was.
And
a
8
pause.
million
That's
more,
what you say.
8 million more than.
That's good.
I agree with you, it is. It is.
And spent less, and was able to not do a utility interfund transfer, which allows utilities to stand on its own and keep its own money instead of transferring it to operating to cover the generally three things operating has to give back: zoo, bus,
Sanitation.
sanitation. So these are, like I said, it couldn't be better news
And sales tax.
on those things.
And sales tax is also up.
Sales tax is a significant amount of that increase. Probably.
So, Mr. Lawverton, he's never going to be positive and say it like you want. You're right, it is, and we projected it to be conservative, to not come in great, but we knew it would be better, so we gave ourselves a bump. It came in a little better than even that. Mr. Johnson will never say that out loud, because he's going to be conservative and say that sales tax maybe moved a little. We actually, it looked, had a pretty good Christmas around here. People were spending, and that was a very good sign.
And even the intergovernmental agreements.
And part of that sales tax too, the parish tax, you'll notice, Mr. Lawberdane, is intergovernmental, that's because it's not our taxes, the parish. The stuff we call is other than taxes.
Which I might add, Jim Butler called in the middle of that and knew, which was interesting. That sounded hokey and weird. It's not. It's just, we account for our part of the parish sales tax that we share. We have our own in the parish. We have to account for that as an intergovernmental transfer. So it's just called that. It could probably be done in a different way, but that's the way
Now,
we do it.
I don't know if you covered this. If you did, please forgive me, but at line item 399999, use of prior year revenues.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, can you explain that to me?
Absolutely. So in that one, you'll see an adjustment that shows it go up. So we adopted a planned use of fund balance of 12. It shows it going up, but this is again, good news. At the true end, it will be better than that 16 number. It just will be. We know that because we're being conservative. You won't use that. And you have to remember, we didn't take the transfer. We didn't take the transfer. It will go down. In the year before, which I had pulled out for exactly that question, Mr. Lawberdane, was only 9.7 million. And I immediately asked David the same thing when we had this meeting a few weeks back. And the answer is a great answer. It is one was the ARPA drawing the last year's number way down that we were able to plug only into police, take out of utilities, not make the transfer. So that 16 will end up being much lower, but its prior year where it was much lower than that was because ARPA was standing up. That's one-time money from the feds that you won't see again. I'm happy to report that on our ARPA money, which was probably over the total time, over 9, right at 10 million. Is that right, or more than that?
10 million in revenue, it was 1.3 million total for,
No, the whole amount of all ARPA funds that came to the city.
yeah.
11 point, that's out, that's it.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, it's been a while since I've been up here. When does our fiscal year end and begin?
April 30th is the end, and May 1 is the new one.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm gonna give you a chance to finish, jump in.
Yeah, I just think this was, what Mr. Lawberdane is circling was very important. He was making the distinction on that amount, because at first blush, you look at it, well, it's higher, so you're doing all this good stuff, why is it? But it's because of the inflation of one-time ARPA funds, and we will not use 16 by the end. It just won't happen. We leave that in the budget to be conservative, but when you true up at the end, it'll be less. You won't see the ARPA again, but we were able to put it in police. We were able to return still a 34% better deal to our ratepayers and a 60% on gas. This is a good MBA. This is a good place to be.
So,
Mr. Johnson?
I came from the budget world 20 years, I just retired a couple years from the budget world. I know our budget is different from the federal budget, so I always ask the same question every year about the carryover, because we like 60 days out before the new fiscal year starts. So I just calculated 14,878,000 just off the top of my head. My question is, is 90 days out from the new fiscal year. Are we gonna adjust these funds somewhere else, like where we could use them?
What happens, Mr. Johnson, at the end of the fiscal year,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna answer your question two ways.
Okay,
First way is gonna be operating funds like the general fund that
Right.
we're looking at. Crossing fiscal years, those appropriations done by y'all die,
right.
and you have to reappropriate.
That drives them crazy, because in the military world,
You gotta
they
use it.
don't.
You gotta spend it right there.
You spend it before the
You
end.
spend it before the end.
Right.
Ours die and you reappropriate.
Right. Down in the.
Not in the
next,
capital.
There's a second answer, capital projects fund, they live on until y'all unappropriate them.
Yes.
They
5-year life in capital.
Capital fund.
Year, annum life in operating.
So, Mr.
No, so I guess my question is, it's January, and we do this probably once a year. If we could do it more like at the 6-month period, where we have more time to adjust, am I making sense?
We do.
These numbers come after the 6-month period.
Right.
It takes a month and a half to collect the sales tax, which
Okay.
is the big income. And then it's that point, and that puts you in about December, around
Okay.
Christmas time. And that David is using those 6 months collections, and he spreads it through the whole year. It takes him, he doesn't get the November and December money to put in here until January.
I got a 2-month lag on sales tax, like Trey's saying, that's my
Okay.
biggest general fund. Here's the other thing here, I don't have to guess as good if I wait another 2 months. Got more
And
here.
these numbers are.
He has more history, yeah.
These are close
Close
to
to
being
the
the accurate numbers you're
Yes.
gonna collect in revenue.
You answer my
So you're right on. You'll be looking at 7 of 12 instead of 6 of 12.
Right.
Because he has to wait, maybe even 8 if you're waiting a full 2 months. But then y'all are getting better data. You're getting truer data.
That's the idea.
I would say I'd like to have been not 30 days ahead, but I want it to be before end of year, but we're just short. Dave and I have talked about it. Nobody's in trouble, but I like for you to have it over the holiday, but this is not abnormal.
More accurate, yes.
Yeah, it's more accurate.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, this budget ends in 2 months, 3 months?
And
April 30th.
April 30th, it's
And
dead.
then we have to pass this-
Reappropriate everything.
Everything else.
Yeah.
Which
New
happens,
budget.
they have to bring it down March.
March 15th.
15th.
45 days before the end of the.
They're working right now on the budget to bring it to you. So.
We have to
the whole
deliver it
month of
March 15th.
February- The whole month of February, the administration's putting it together. They bring it to you in 6 weeks from now.
All right, and then that's when we talk about,
And
What
that's
you
when
want.
have to go.
all right, so,
I just can't shake it.
yeah.
It's just in me.
You got it.
I just can't shake
I'm
it.
learning, well, it's coming back to me. It's coming back
All
to me.
right.
And it will.
Yeah.
So I would just end with the only other salient features in it for me, and then you can talk to these two gentlemen as long as you guys need, is, you go through it and you're going to see some overtime spent. That is normal every time. If y'all go back, you're going to always see that because it is the one place where even in conservative budgeting, it's a different version of it. We normally budget everything under revenue, more expense, right? You always want to do that. But expenses on overtime, you don't want to say high because then we're telling all our folks that's the new normal. That is like military. You know that rule, Gary. So we don't want to create incrementalism that way. We want to keep that check so when the MBA comes around, you go to your department heads and supers and say, why is overtime here? I told Madam President, and she can share now or in the back, the only negative I saw in the whole thing had to do with some vehicular maintenance stuff where and we're gonna, that'll be the one spot we do a small internal audit just to check. Other than that, this is maybe not to y'all, but to us, this would be classified as a boring MBA. Not much to it, other than the good stuff we report.
I have just a comment, I don't know if this is appropriate or not. So, when's the last time city workers have had a raise?
Last fiscal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've given a
And the year before that,
lot of, yeah.
yeah, big one, 2
Council's
years
been,
ago.
council had a 10% a few, it's
2
been,
years ago, or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
10%, then 4 point something last year.
So I assume our pay is competitive for government employees?
In some areas, yes, in some areas, no, but it's not as easy as just raising it because of compression and comparing.
Civil service.
There's a lot of challenges in civil service, as you know, and
I'm learning.
we have to, my movement has been to, if you're in utilities and you have a certain classification there, to be competitive, that has to be different maybe than someone who has the same title, but a very different work. So years ago, the city, before my time, had moved toward, if you had the same title, it was the same. And they probably at the time thought that was fair because it was maybe so out of whack. Well, it turns out now, too many years that way has made it out of whack the other way. So someone who, y'all could give me an example, but a maintenance worker, one who is in one deal, but maybe different in the plant, they may have very different job duties and require very different pay. A lineman is a terribly underpaid position for us. And so it's a great question, and we are in the middle of continued pay plan work, trying to bring some of those things together for our future. We also want to see police and fire move more toward having a pay plan that makes sure that instead of worrying about contracts every year, that they know where they stand by law.
Any additional comments, questions? Mr. Green?
Yes, please, let's go to page 6. No, before we go to page 6, go to page 4, item 646030, and explain to me legal obligations where we got a $49,000 increase. What are we leasing?
What number did you say, Mr. Green?
Page 4,
In the middle, top or bottom?
bottom, 646030, lease obligations. Allocated 126,000.
All right, I see it.
Raised 49,000, we're at 175.
Parks and Rec,
It's
gonna be-
Yes, okay.
Lease obligation.
lease of
Lease obligations, what is that? That, I was going to do this, I want to see what,
just lawnmowers and equipment leases.
lawnmowers and equipment.
I mean, I won't say just lawnmowers, but equipment leases to maintain the parks. There's a lot to maintain.
Okay,
Cheaper to do that than to buy them.
You know, maybe.
so we don't purchase our lawn equipment, we lease it. There's just certain pieces that we lease.
So, Mr. Green, you're circling something. I know you're circling exactly what I was talking about earlier about some of the maintenance and repair.
Yeah.
There was a time when the city owned all of its, most of its stuff, we'll say, and we had a very robust, we fixed it, we maintained it, and now we have a little more of a mix. It is cheaper in some areas than having the ability to keep on civil service the type of staff we had. It is very difficult to find master mechanics and all the people that we used to just routinely have for these kinds of things. It was really rather wonderful because they could fix anything. It's just much harder to compete either in the private sector or through technology, AI, automation, all the other things. We're finding that having those top mechanics at that level is much harder for us.
Okay,
To find them. And so you're going to always see where we used to have that and don't, you're going to see an increase in a lease service because you're going out and getting it somewhere else. It's not optimum, Mr. Green. I'm not saying I'm happy about that. I'm saying it's a consequence of where we are right now in society, but I'd like to tinker with it probably.
understandable, thank you on that one. I just have two others. On page 6, under legal, item 531110, allocated 900,000, increased 400,000, we're at 1.3 million. What occurred in that 6-month period in my absence, not being on the board? I'm
going to defer that to Mr. Goins, but I'm going to suggest that that's low. We set legal low to keep control over what attorneys are paid, and then you'll always see, almost always, I don't want to say universal, you will routinely see in a major budget amendment that a sizable increase in legal as the true bills come in. But I can just tell you from my years past, that's nothing compared to the legal fees that I recall.
So okay, saying that, how many city attorneys do we have?
In-house?
In, out, total?
We have 3, including myself, we have 4, but we have 3 assistant city attorneys, and we have numerous contract attorneys.
Can you give me a ballpark figure on the contractors?
I can get you an exact figure in the morning.
I would appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you kindly. And let's go to page 7. This is going to be swift here. Recreation, 543011, recreation culture. You allocated 74,000, increased to 25. We're at 99,000. Is this going to include summer programs coming on, or what do we have here? Because school's out in May, what are we going to have for the children in this budget? Because this ends April, and the new budget starts in May. What are we going to be looking
So
for?
It should be
we'll
no
send you,
equipment.
when Mr. Goins sends you that tomorrow, we'll send you our whole year. We had a ton of summer programs, maybe the most ever in the history of the city. STEM, law enforcement, different ones. You could go to more than one. You can pick and choose. We did a ton of summer programming. And we will send you all those with the data that went with it for the last summer. And I would suggest that we not change that this summer and that we continue to have that level of program.
I would like for the, go ahead, Mr. Green.
That would be greatly appreciated. And my
You're
last item of observation is page 15, capital projects, 812503-707000, West Alexandria wastewater capacity study, $150,000 for a study. What is that? Are we getting ready to build a new sewage plant?
I think so, yes, sir. We're short. So all where the growth is toward the Coliseum, we're gonna be woefully short. As you have, it's been that way for some time, and it gets kicked or deferred. And it wouldn't just be wastewater and sewage, which will be huge as things move across that way and move down 28, but we also are gonna see utility connection that's going to need to be there. A lot of stuff out there that you can have some brownouts that you don't have elsewhere, because as people move and expand, we have to go out and meet them with the utilities, and as you stretch that, you're going to see problems. So we're going to have to build more substations and other things as well. I would say that's long overdue for the amount of growth that's happening there. We just annexed in a bunch of Foster Walker's new stuff, which is great, because that adds to your tax base to fund projects citywide. You're getting that sales tax that we weren't getting for a long time. They were right on the city line, but outside the city. So you're getting some revenue to meet the growth.
As I was reading that caught my eye.
Yes.
That study, so I was wondering where it was, what it was about. Thank you much.
All right.
That's all, Mr. Lawrence.
I have another question. You mentioned for recreation, Mayor, that you had allegations for, I guess, for the summer.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way that the city could do year-round programming?
Well, we do year-round program.
Like for recreational?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. And we'll give you our whole list.
okay,
I mean, we publish it, it's online, so we do a lot of programming.
okay.
A lot. And a lot of partnering with others who do programming. Private sector folks do a lot of programming too, where we partner, different sports teams and those kind of things.
So when you send that out, Mayor, you send it to all the
I will
council
send it to all
members?
of you, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
One last thing on the recreation. Has to get the word out, because we're doing these programs and we're not getting a lot of participation from the kids, because council have to get out. Because when they do it over Martin Park, I try to get the kids out, get the family out. So we have to do a better job of getting our people out to enjoy these programs that they put on display.
We had some good numbers, record numbers for us in the teen center, but Mr. Johnson's right. We can handle more, there needs to be more.
Yes.
But we were talking hundreds, we're talking a real amount of kids that were served, but we could be more.
Any other comments?
So I had one from Mike Paul, found something that I missed. The last 2 pages of y'all's presentation is actually an addendum to the 2004-2005 major budget amendment. It's an old file.
This?
Yes, sir.
You can hardly see
Can't see that.
I can't
You
read it.
really can't see.
Can't eat it.
You can just, that's an artifact you can just tear off.
You can hardly see it.
Get your-
Going after 5 years, man.
Motion. When I printed it at the time, Mr. Walker, I could see it just fine. That's
All right.
all.
All right. Have a motion by Mr. Fowler,
Second.
have a second by Mr. Villard. All in favor? No vote?
Aye.
No vote?
No votes,
Okay.
Mayor.
All righty. All right. Thank you for refreshing me on that. All right. Having there being no more items for the Finance Legal Affairs Committee to consider, we are now adjourned. All righty.
Thank you, committee members.
All right.
We're going to go straight into council meeting. Council meeting is called to order. Alexandria City Council meeting and council committee meetings are broadcast live and may be viewed live by the public on Optimum Cable Channel 4. A rebroadcast may be viewed on Optimum Cable Channel 4 in the City of Alexandria, Louisiana website. The invocation will be done by myself, and the pledge will be done by Councilman Green. Let's bow our heads, please. Father God, I want to thank you for this day. I want to thank you for the blessing that you have bestowed upon me. I want to ask that you look down upon each and every one that's here today, Father God. I ask that you touch my colleagues, you touch the mayor and his administration, Father God. I ask that you allow us to get along, Father God, so that we can better this city, Father God. I thank you for all that you have done. I ask that you continue to do what you're going to do so that we can grow this city. Lord, I ask that you be with every person that's sitting in the audience, Lord, to humble their hearts, Lord, to let them know that we're here to better our city. We're here to make the change that need to be changed, and we can only do that through you and working together. I ask, oh Heavenly Father, that you speak through me and that you direct my steps. In your name I pray. Amen.
I got it.
Here. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. Felter? Here. Mr. Green?
Present.
Mr. Fowler? Here. Mr. Villar?
Here.
Mr. Lawberdane?
Here.
Ms. Perry?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes taken for a regular meeting held on January the 14th, 2025.
Second.
I would ask that you allow the statement and the items to be read completely. I would ask for the motion, then I would ask for the second.
All right. We have a motion.
So, Mr.
Second.
Fowler, motion.
And a second by Mr. Villard.
Mr. Fowler made the motion, second by Mr. Villard. Public comments. Mr. White,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam.
you're welcome.
My name is Mr. Cornelius Lawson White Jr. I live at 3638 10th Street in Alexandria, Louisiana, 71302. My phone number is area code 318-446-6934. Madam President and the council, I hope and pray, just like you're saying, that we'll have a good year and everything. We've got a little bit of a new council, and I hope that the council and you will be open to where we can have public discussion where the people will be able to say whether they have to, sign up or whatever. But years ago, we used to have public discussion. So I'm asking you, Madam President, and the council.
Mr. White, I don't want to.
No, we're not going to argue.
No, we're not going to argue, but this is to approve the minutes.
Yeah, I understand.
And do you have anything to say about the minutes?
Yeah, I just would like for us to have some type of public, because we used to speak public.
And you will be able to speak public.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Mr. White.
Let me ask you something. Is
Yes,
this the
sir.
first we've ever had an African-American female? Oh, well, see, with Black history and everything, so first time we ever had a Black female president.
Thank you, Mr. White.
F, consent calendar. Number 1, introduction of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept the low bid submitted for transit tire lease for A-Trans. Number 2, introduction of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to renew the existing contract with Janitorial Cleaning and Staffing LLC for janitorial services at the wastewater and lab testing buildings.
Move.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask for the motion. So I need a motion
Move.
Second.
and second.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We get together, we get together.
Yes, y'all will get it together.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Fowler. I have a second by Mr. Johnson. And any items to the committees? You don't have it,
Let's put two in legal.
G, resolutions. Number 3, resolution authorizing advertisement for bid for cast ductile iron and related accessories.
I need a motion, please. Second, please.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Fowler, a second by Councilman Johnson. Any public comments? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 4, resolution authorizing advertisement for bid for operating supplies for the wastewater department.
Motion, please.
Move.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Felter and a second by Councilman Valord. Any public comments? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 5, resolution authorizing advertisement for bids for operating supplies for the gas department.
Need a motion, please?
Move.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Valord, second by Mr. Johnson. Public comments? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
H, ordinances for final adoption, subject to public hearing. Number 6, to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept the low bid submitted for statewide flood control capital improvement project, Augusta Avenue Fairground Machine Shop flood control. Madam President, the administration is requesting that this item be delayed for 2 weeks, and we just need a motion and a second to delay this item.
Madam Clerk, can we check, make sure? Who sent that down, if you don't mind me asking, Ms. Jones?
We received it, Mayor, but it was late.
Oh, you, okay, got it. Excuse me.
So we have a motion to delay it.
We need a motion and a second to delay it.
I have a
Move.
motion.
All right, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Johnson and a second by Councilman Lawberdane to delay this
Yeah,
item.
me too. We're gonna get it right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 7, to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept the low bid submitted for bulk fuel for vehicles and equipment for use by various departments. Madam President, the administration is requesting that this item be delayed for 2 weeks, and we need a motion and a second to delay it.
Need a motion to delay it? A second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Lizzie and second by Mr. Valord. Public comments, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 8, to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to promote the city of Alexandria by entering into all contracts with bands and vendors for 2025 events and other matters with respect thereto.
Need a motion?
Move.
A second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Valord, a second by Councilwoman Felter. Any public comments? Mr. White?
No, I'll pass, I heard.
Okay.
I see, Pat.
Is anyone else? Can anyone?
Any
Any
public
other
comments? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 9, to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to declare certain items surplus and no longer needed or used by city departments to be sold at a public auction scheduled for Saturday, March 1st, 2025.
I need a motion, please. A second?
Second.
Could we add to the committee?
No. Mm-mm.
Comments?
Yeah.
I have a
Mm.
que-
Motion by Mr. Fowler, second by Mr. Valord. Public comments?
Yes, Mayor,
No,
Not
you
you.
discussion. No.
You in the discussion? That's you.
that's me, okay, all right. We getting it together, all right. Well, Mayor, where would this auction be held?
I imagine that's auction barn.
Yeah, the Bonnet Auction Barn, I would.
McKiffin. McKiffin.
I'm gonna get that.
Mhm.
Now,
In the time?
it's usually in the morning.
She does all the advertising.
It's usually about 8 o'clock.
8 until.
I understand, I've just had some folks who are interested,
Okay.
and, I mean, we're selling quite a few items, a lot of items, quite frankly.
Yes.
And I just wanted
Pretty
to look-
typical with the barn.
Yeah, but I just want to know the time, because I had some people who wanted to bid on some stuff.
Yeah, she does, the auctioneer does the advertising and.
It's on their website.
Is it on the website?
On the city
Bonnet.
website.
What time does the website state, or do you know?
They have.
I'll try to look it up.
I know they usually start at 8.
Well, I mean, I just want to state it because people are listening to this meeting, and they might want to know when the time is. That's all.
Any more discussion?
Madam
Yes.
President. Who compiles this list, please?
Purchasing department when it's declared surplus, Mr. Green.
All right, Mr. Johnson, I'm going to address you. I went through this list and I saw surplus furniture items and other miscellaneous items, and there are several that are marked excellent condition. They couldn't have been transferred to another department. When I see good, scrap, poor, when I get to excellent, I want to know what's up.
Some stuff may be surplus and no one picked over. That's typically what happens. It lands in surplus. City departments pick it over. If no one does, it winds up going off.
Well, it could also just be simply, like I'm looking on page 5 at a Canon camera with fire, it's excellent condition, but if they've moved to a higher-end camera and better resolution and new things, they have something that's excellent, they'll put it up for auction because it's no longer the standard and they no longer use it.
And no one else needs it in the city.
And they have like bus parts for buses and trucks that's marked as excellent, yeah.
Lots of vehicles,
Lots.
lots of vehicles.
We had to buy a lot of these.
I have a question. So, just going back to my budget world. Once we do the auction, the funds come back to where?
Back to the
The
city.
And we put it back, so I will see those funds somewhere on the next report.
On miscellaneous revenue, that's one of the.
Okay,
places it
Okay.
goes.
That's why, okay. So it goes back into miscellaneous.
It goes back to the fund where it originated, Johnson. When the utility truck is sold as surplus.
It goes back to
the fund gets
utility.
the money back.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And if it's in other parts of the operating, it'll have a miscellaneous and it'll show it there.
Right.
And,
I'm good.
and what happens to the items that don't sell?
They're typically disposed of.
Okay.
State law requires you to try to sell it. Some things don't have much market.
Understand. 9 a.m., I heard? Okay, 9 a.m.
You see
Okay.
it, Malcolm?
Yeah, well, someone in the audience, Mr. Rick Horton, just stated that the auction is 9 a.m. on March 1st. March 1st. So,
All right.
Thank you,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horton.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carry.
Item number 10, to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the 2024-2025 major budget amendment.
Need a motion, please?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fowler, second by Mr. Johnson. Public comments? Mr. White?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President.
You welcome.
I know y'all had the discussion about all this stuff. I was just wondering, is there anything about the audit? Do we get a chance to hear about that sometime? Because I'm just asking. I understand we got the budget, but how has the audit been?
We haven't got the audit just yet, Mr. White.
Oh, y'all
And
haven't got?
And when we do,
Okay, I was just asking, because like I
it's no
said,
problem.
do you know exactly when the audit's gonna be or anything like that?
This is Dr. Jermaine.
No, sir.
No, okay.
Discussion.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 11, to consider final adoption of an ordinance committing additional city funds to the LWI Chaplain Lake Backwater Overflow Structure to the Red River LWI 0192.
Motion, please.
Move.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Ballard, a second by Councilman Felter. Public comments?
Right here.
Mr. White?
Yes, thank you, Madam President.
You're welcome.
On the Chaplain Lake, is this the project that was started under Mayor Hall with Pan American?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's finally gonna be worked on now, right?
Yes, sir.
It's been going on longer than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's 20.
A
So,
long time.
I know we're gonna have they said on News Channel 5 Thursday, it may be a flood event. So are we preparing for that for Thursday?
I'm sure they'll look into
We're
it.
always prepared.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure, I'd like to see them city trucks going out, picking up limbs and stuff and cutting back trees. 'Cause
And they will.
We did a good job, for the winter storm that came last week.
All right. Thank
All
you,
right.
Mr.
Thank you,
White.
ma'am.
Thank you. All in favor?
Discussion.
Hold on.
Discussion.
Discussion. I'm sorry, Mr. Green.
No problem. The project went from 11 million to $19 million, an $8 million increase in how many years, and what did they incur that cost us $8 million more?
The cost of building a project this size is probably one of the biggest in the city right now. Has gone up astronomically in the post-COVID and then even events since COVID. But you will note that this is an increase by the grantor. So there's a grant increase.
Correct.
We're only providing $1 million additional from the city to meet that grant increase. Right before you came on, Mr. Green, we had a couple of discussions at budgets with Ms. Perry. It's her district. First of all, this is a citywide important project, although it drastically, of course, affects her district. It also is about flow of water through the whole city that goes that way. Second of all, the idea was to try to ride this out as long as we can for the very reason of your astute question, which is that as things keep increasing, we felt like we had to make a decision with Ms. Perry about whether to stay on this one and add a little more money to try to get us finally the Chaplain over that way into the river and think about how to do that, or to break this up into a bunch of smaller projects. And I think that we settled on the idea that we were going to ride this out a little longer. And we had a couple of different meetings, budget meetings and others, and made that election. I would still recommend, even though I do see risk, I don't know if you were touching on that a bit, but I do see the risk of continued increasing costs to do this project, where there would come a day when you might make a different decision as the appropriating body, but I would not recommend you do it today, because think how many years it took us to get here. It was even before Mr. Hall. Probably versions of it were all the way into Ned's administration. This idea of doing this has been around. We've never had this much money allocated for it through grants. I would suggest we stick with it a little bit longer.
And I think that I fought hard for this, to see people flooding and to see people in their homes, this is a project that I know that is well needed in my district. And so I am definitely going to back it.
Well, really, like the mayor said, and like you said, it affects the whole city because my water is coming towards you, and the quicker we get it out, it'll stop. This is just not for one district. It's when it's flowing through the city. So this is a big project, and it'll relieve some of my water in Martin Park and everywhere else.
The vast majority of flood of water leaving the city hits the Chatelain. Just think of it as standing over on Bayou Rapides Road, behind the Red River, Chaffalot Bayou Bluff, behind RAB. So Menards here, keep going behind RAB.
Right.
Imagine you're on that levee. There's a little control structure right there. So that one goes to the Red River. It can. It's usually where its flow is not an issue for us. The rest of it can flow the other way down the diversion canal, right? It goes on the side of Windermere through Charles Park, goes all the way out. Most of the water, other than those two, there's one exception in the city, everywhere else, from horseshoe drainage, everywhere else y'all can think of, it's the Chatelain. And ultimately, they all converge together after that area into the Bayou Cortable area, over where Port Barry is, Bayou Cortable, and then on to the Chaffalot, then on to the Gulf. That's how it all goes.
And I had a good lesson. Yeah. Yeah, and my husband gave me a good lesson on the
The Chatelain carries most of the water of the city.
Yes, and
So
he
this
lets
would
me know
relieve some
that
of
every
the-
time it rains.
So, after this project is done, what else could be done in the event what we're doing here is inadequate?
Well, so that's a great question. I think if Mr. David were here, I could quote him because I've heard it 1,000 times. It's all a tax choice we make in America, in a community. You could allocate forever. What you can't do is raise houses that are below the floodplain unless you have a program to do it, grants, et cetera. One thing I would say, Mr. Lawverdane, and you see it happened in Gary's district on Spencer Street. People got tired of dealing with it any other way, and there's a bunch of raised houses on the corner of Spencer and what is it that goes in Millmore? That area is the second or first lowest point in the city. The other one would be Windermere, right at the dip at McAdams Ditch. Both of those are roughly around 67 feet. Base flood elevation in our city is 72 point something, 3. So base flood elevation, BFE is 72. Those two areas are that much lower than the city, than where they should be. Maybe if you think about Greenway Park, which is out of the city, that weird spot that's out of the city behind Haverty's. And there's one other area that, well, Penny Acres is another example. It's in the parish and takes some water. All those places have different issues, but right behind, behind, is it the Lowe's right there? What is the major superstore on Home Depot? Behind Home Depot and that area going behind Brame. So these are your troughs, if you will. Behind and into Brame, behind there, Spencer and that part of Martin Park, this low area on Windermere, those are the three really lowest spots. Plantation Acres. Plantation Acres. So how the city would fix that is you're going to always be hammered to put more money and do different things, but at some point, nature and gravity will beat just about everything that man can hydraulically move, unless you just spend money enough to somehow get that water out before it hits, and it really is tough. So some people have looked at programs where you buy a house out. I have always said that at least the last two houses, 2 or 3 on Spencer, the better program would be to buy that property and build it up. But before we ever got to that point, I think the folks that owned it were like, I got this, they raised it. And the one on the corner, if you go see, it's raised. It's way up in the air. So there were programs that do that. But those are your lowest spots. The Chatelain, West Sandy Bayou, all that, different. That ground moves all kind of ways. The West Sandy Bayou is one of the few places you'll ever see that can flow and contraflow. Depending on what's happening, it can run 2 ways. I've seen it a million times do it. It's wild to see. And so all of this program ultimately would move that water that's all out in District 3 from the rest of the city hitting it faster into other tables where it could be, Red River would be the main one, than to continue to have that glut going through only the Chatelain system. We also have farmers who block the Chatelain down in the Vols. They put weirs, they put dams, they do all kind of things to control water flow, which backs it up. If it's not clean, snagged and stuff properly, all of that creates dams, beavers, everything else that can keep it back up. Bridges,
Now,
private bridges over, hunting bridges.
does the city have an overall program to deal with flooding, to address future flooding?
100%. And so what we do, we just went over those areas. If you look at that Operation Cleanout that we did coming back in, we spent $1 million doing that. One of the biggest things we do is keep the structures clear. Mr. White, Cornelius White just said that. The thing you want to do is before a known storm, you can't do it every time. You know a big storm's coming, you go out and clean it a lot, more than normal. Rabbit runs, everything. And you especially go to the areas where you know things pack up. We have a very poor understanding as a community of keeping our own roadways clean. So Marie Street, other areas where there are a ton of older trees, lots of pine straw, lots of different things that fall, that will clump up at a catch basin, and someone will think, look, my street is flooding. Why is it flooding? I know I'm in the highest part of the city. Why is it doing it? Well, because there's a cat, it's damming. And so, or a garbage bag will float literally down a gutter and block it. We as a community have to watch that, watch for our neighbors, and go pick that up if we can. But we do have a system to do it, and Alex Connects, I would stress more than ever, use Alex Connects. If you see something, say something about it, and we'll try to get out there. The city has some high points, but there's a few low places. I saw in the last big storm, I try to use them to measure things, that we avoided flooding in houses. There was water kept in streets, except one spot, I hate to say his name, but at Charles's house on Augusta, that low area by 14th continues to have a big problem. It's the only one left area that the work hadn't caught up, and that project is here to throw water over that back levee, and it will serve anywhere from 10 to 20 houses that need it.
So
It could make a difference in a storm.
So after the improvements are made at an outline in item number 11, what's after that? Or do we have a?
Oh, we'll have a list, and I will be happy to get you just our drainage list so you can see all the projects in the chute. Mr. Larverdane, I weighed drainage projects, number ones, so in our priority system, a P1 or a P2 will be drainage. The only difference in a P1 and a P2 is a P1 is a P2 that's in the money, meaning all the grant money's there and we're ready to go. If not, you could still be a top project, but if there's not all the money available, it could be a P2. Then there's a P3 and a P indeterminate.
So what's the next P2 we got?
I don't know offhand, but I'll get you a list. And it's easy, it's in your budget. If you go in the budget, you'll see you can look at them by years, but I keep a separate list that has the ratings of those projects.
Flooding is an issue, so.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay. All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 12, to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Manor House regarding the Manor House Pro-Am Coca-Cola Dr. Pepper Open Annika Women's All-Pro Golf Tournament scheduled for April the 2nd, 2025 at Links on the Bayou Golf Course.
Motion, please.
Move.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Fowler. I'm sorry, correction. Motion by Mr. Valord, second by Mr. Fowler. Public comments? Discussion?
One thing, I heard a rumor that Ms. Annika Sorensen will be coming in for this tournament. She's the Hall of Fame, probably the most famous female golfer ever, and she is supposed to be coming in for this tournament, so that'd be big for Alexandria.
Need to make sure we promote that, huh?
She played in a few men's tournaments also, did well.
And I think in this one, we're offering like 12.5 and
So, Ms. Loverdane's picking up on, we don't normally contribute, because Manor House, we do a lot with, but,
And they do a lot for us.
and they do a lot for us. So the difference here, it's a great question, and it's different than probably 100%. We're in this one because the management of the golf course as an enterprise fund is done by a private party. We elected to do it in a manner where we're making an inter-fund transfer with this. So what we would normally do to run our part of it, we are handling because it's a private company running it, so that the accounting is clear for you guys and for the auditor. And David can explain more his thoughts on that if you don't mind.
I thought we were offering chairs and like.
No, we'll have all that because we own it, so we can put things out there, but we have a value in it of that much.
We recognize the revenue at the golf course as it would almost an arm's length transaction.
We're treating our enterprise fund as though it's a private sector party we're doing business with, again, to account because it's a proprietary fund. I'm pushing that in everything we do. If we have an enterprise fund, I want it to be treated like an enterprise fund should be. It's supposed to make money, figure out how to do it right. It's different from the city proper, which is regular operations. Your tax dollars pay for it. That's being run. It should be taking in revenue, running its services, et cetera. What you do for it is the capital side. So it ain't a bad deal to get in that golf running business if it's damn hard to do it right. And that course is great.
Basically, what they're doing is, whatever they charge,
We're taking away the green fees.
We're
is all
taking away the
doing.
green fees, we're just flipping it back.
So that the people raising the money for Manor House and all that we're taking away the green fee side. But we're doing it, normally we just would tell them, don't charge it, but because they're an enterprise fund, we want that to be accounted for, so we can see that book and audit them and see how the money went.
But ultimately, the city will make money off this.
Oh, yeah.
Jim says, oh, yeah.
All I'm saying, we'll have 100 golfers here for a whole week spending money every day.
Yeah, and so, Mr. Caffrey just wanted me to remind you, it is part of a cooperative endeavor that is in general for the stuff we do. We volunteer there, they do a lot. There are many deliverables they meet back, as Gary was saying. So they're feeding people, and Manor House does a lot, but they're doing a whole host of deliverables in their contract. This is one thing we're doing in exchange for those deliverables.
All right.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Trey has a public announcement.
We have an announcement of a public meeting. Notice is hereby given that at its meeting to be held on Tuesday, February the 25th, 2025, at 5 p.m. at its regular meeting place, the City Council Chambers, first floor, City Hall, 915 3rd Street, Alexandria, Louisiana. The City Council of the City of Alexandria, State of Louisiana, plans to consider adopting a resolution ordering and calling an election to be held in the City of Alexandria, State of Louisiana, to authorize the renewal of an ad valorem tax therein.
That's it? Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Right here.